if you're going to be successful at anything, then you have to be passionate about it.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Bert terHart is a self-described soldier, sailor, adventurer, serial entrepreneur, and author, and he has a remarkable talent for achieving the impossible. As a fellow of the Royal Canadian Geographical Society, an explorer in residence for the BC Historical Society, the founder of the Canadian Interactive Waterways Initiative, and the CEO of LeadBrain AI, Bert has carved a path of adventure and innovation. His accomplishments include completing solo, non-stop sailing expeditions around the globe and an astonishing 7,800-kilometer solo paddle across Canada. But beyond the physical feats, Bert's story is one of resilience, purpose, and unwavering commitment to process, proving that even the toughest challenges can be overcome with the right mindset. His experience offers invaluable lessons in perseverance, innovative thinking, and goal setting. So Bert, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Candy. I'm really looking forward to speaking with you today. And there's so many rabbit holes that we're going to be that we might be visiting. So I know it's kind of hard to pin it all down, but I'm sure we're going to do a good job of it.
Well, I do have to say before we get started, my husband loved sailing before too, and when I married him, we actually lived on a sailboat for 8 months before we moved somewhere else. So I have a little bit of experience with sailing, but that was a long time ago now. But before I ask you questions on the topic, I would love for you just, share your story, what inspired you to take on these incredible challenges that you have done, and what has your journey taught you about pushing beyond your limits?
Well, I think fundamentally, I've had a very eccentric, sort of varied path through adulthood, and I cannot say no to the things that I'm passionate about. And that's led me into becoming an entrepreneur. It's guided, this idea of me being a adventurer / explorer. And although they might seem disparate, there's a thread that binds them all together. So clearly, or obviously, that's passion. I'm formally trained as a scientist, so I'm looking at everything through a bit of a tech lens, and that's led me into being an IT guy for most of my adult life. And if you're going to be successful at anything, then you have to be passionate about it. And if you're not passionate about it, you just can't persist at it long enough to succeed. And there are no shortcuts. I'm here to tell you, sadly, that there aren't any shortcuts. And the sooner you come to grips with that, the sooner you're gonna meet up with the success that everyone is striving for.
Well, sometimes, we don't realize how difficult the adventure is going to be either, right? We think it's going to be like, oh, we're going to do this. And yes, it will be a little bit difficult, but then it becomes really overwhelming too. So I guess, what are some of the things that you have found, or maybe misconceptions that people have about handling those times when they come and they're tougher than they expected? And how would they, maybe overcome those beliefs that they have that are incorrect?
Well, I think right out of the box, what you think you're going to be doing, maybe what you hope you're going to be doing is going to be wildly different than what you're going to end up doing. So you have to come to grips with, especially if you're just starting out, that the plan that you have is going to be very, very fluid. I mean, every army officer in the world has to read, Sun Tzu's Art of War, and one of the things that you take away from that book is that the first casualty of any battle is the plan, which is a pretty good summary for when you start a business. The thing that you think you're going to be doing, besides, you're already going to be doing everything, but the things that you think you're going to be doing are going to be so very different. And that's what makes it so unbelievably frustrating, because you think you have a particular skill set, or you need a particular skill set, or you think your audience is this particular audience, and you have an idea of how you're going to reach out to those people, but it's never quite that. And that's what makes it so unbelievably frustrating. And if you're not agile in terms of, if you want to use computer lingo, if you're not agile enough, then it just becomes impossibly difficult. And your passions may not be sufficient to drive you through. So what do you need actually to come to grips with all that uncertainty? You need to have very many whys as to why you're doing that thing, because it's going to be so hard that you're going to burn through a bucket of whys that you can't possibly imagine. If you only have one why, I want to do this because I want to make X number of dollars a month, you're going to blow that why up in the first couple of days because it's going to be way too hard.
Yeah.
And if you have no other whys other than I just want to make a bunch of money, then you're never, I guarantee you will not succeed. You need to have a bucket full of whys, because it's going to be so hard that you're going to be yanking those whys out of the bucket as fast as you can. And when you finally do succeed, you're going to look in that, that figurative bucket of whys and see that there's a whole bunch there, which is inspiring in and of itself, because that tells you you've got something left in the tank to reach higher or farther or wider. So that I can't overstate that enough. You have to have very many whys, and that takes to find those. You have to look inside yourself and have a really good idea of what you're doing. So I suppose the way to imagine this is, if I want to build the tallest building in the world, I have to dig the deepest hole in the ground first for a foundation. So in order to go this way, the first thing you have to do is go that way. And the higher you want to go this way, the more you have to go that way. And going this way is a analogous way to saying that you have to have a lot of whys, and that will be your foundation that you can build upon as you go up.
Mm-hmm. Well, even while you were talking, I was thinking, as entrepreneurs, when many people start their business, they're saying, oh, I'm a great, say, pastry chef, and so I want to have a business making pastries, but you don't end up doing the pastries very much if you're the entrepreneur, because you have all the other things that you have to do, or you wear 20 hats, so yes, maybe you still are making pastries, but now you also have the email marketing you have to do, or managing the staff, hiring, firing, all those different things. And so I think a lot of times people go into business with one concept of thinking what it's going to be, and then they get that eye-opening experience where it's a lot more than you thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I think perhaps and this runs antithetical, I suppose, to what it is to be an entrepreneur. But my job has always been to replace me. So if I want to be a pastry chef, then my job is to, as quick as I can, hire a pastry chef that's as good or better than me. And I mean, I'm not a very good cook, so that wouldn't be a very tall bar. But the point is, it's twofold, because, as you said very, very, very correctly and astutely, that you will not be a pastry chef very long because you have all these other tasks. And the other thing is that if you ever want to exit that business and you are not part of it, then the multiples go way up. And it becomes way more attractive. So suddenly you have an exit strategy. And if you do it, think of it this way: if you want to be a pastry chef, and the first thing you do is replace yourself, then you can open up another pastry shop almost immediately. I mean, if things go well. So maybe that's a long-winded way of saying that you need to understand how to delegate. And the first person, of course, because you're doing everything, the first person that you're going to replace is yourself, because you can't do everything, right? That's impossible. But that's the way it starts out for most solo entrepreneurs, or solopreneurs, I guess. So you're going to be replacing yourself for. Clearly, you're going to be doing it for those jobs you don't like. Say accounting, or, like you say, hiring and firing, whatever the case might be, or digital marketing or social media outreach, whatever the case is. And that's never a problem, right? That people are okay with that. But you have to understand that you will also be replacing your core skill set, which is what attracted you to the business in the first place.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I'm actually now a certified, it's called Clockwork COO, where we could teach operational efficiency and things. And that's one of the things we start teaching them too, is number one, you're usually the bottleneck, right? So you're preventing your business from growing, and you do need to have other people take over tasks, and you need to properly delegate, and you need to be able to step out of the business, not only for you just to have time away, but for your business to succeed in the long run, right? So it's so true you brought that up.
I think if you think why you started a business in the first place, nobody starts a business so they can work 24/7, 365,
right?
Which is what happens if you're not replaceable. So if you
Mhm.
want to have I mean, everyone does this. Everyone is seeking some advantage, and I'm framing this particular advantage in the form of lifestyle. So, and people, I mean, that's one of the things that keeps attracting me to small business or serial entrepreneurship, is that I can pretty much create a lifestyle that suits me and
Mhm.
the rest of my family and all the other people who care about me. And that's an incredible win. Like, think of that as a win. One of the things I've been very privileged to do is work with people I really like. And over the course of my adult life, I've tried to make sure that I'm working with people I really like, and that makes going to work a joy, because you're surrounded by your friends, and most of it is just fun, as
Right.
opposed to work. And if you ask, I think if you ask the majority of people who are working a typical 9 to 5 job, although I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all, by any stretch of the imagination, one of the things that usually is at the top of the list is they're not real happy being in that place. They would rather be somewhere else. And I think,
Mhm.
considering how much time we have to work, and how much of our work life subsumes the rest of our life, it's a pretty sad state to think that you're going to spend most of your life doing something and being with people you don't like. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure that, for me, that isn't a recipe for success. And I suppose if I frame it that way, that sounds pretty awful. So
Mhm.
uh, yeah, so it's been a privilege as an entrepreneur to one, make myself replaceable, and secondly, that then affords me a lifestyle that I started the whole thing to begin with.
Exactly, because too many people start thinking they're going to have freedom, and now they're tied to the business,
Mhm,
and then they're not enjoying life too. So,
mhm,
but I would love for you to share maybe like an example of a difficult situation that you went through in your entrepreneurial journey, and how you use certain processes to navigate through that successfully. What were those processes? How did you manage,
mhm.
those difficult moments?
Well, I what I've always tried to do is look for the simplest, elegant solution that I can that I can repeat across all kinds of timescales, and I can repeat across all kinds of contexts. So basically, I have a system that I can plug into anything, and the system works. So it's really simple. It's plan, prepare, practice, persist, and it's a positive feedback loop. So
Mm.
let's say, because I'm a tech guy, I tend to look at my audience. My ideal customer profile is someone like me, because I can speak my language, I speak this jargon, I understand me for the most part, and that's the lens through which I look at the world, and that's true of anyone, because you can only read out of your own autobiography. But mine happens to be particularly skewed to the IT side of the fence and the science side of the fence, and that ain't my audience. That ain't my audience. So I have to constantly be checking myself to make sure that whenever I'm reaching out to an audience, or I'm trying to create an audience, that I'm not just talking to myself. This isn't an echo chamber. So this idea of plan, prepare, practice, and persist, this idea of this is positive feedback loop, you take this in very small steps. So let's say that I'm working with a small business, and they do driveway repairs, and I need to reach out. I need to find those people wherever they are. So I would make a plan, and then I would prepare how I'm going to execute that plan, whether it's Facebook, or whether it's any kind of paid advertising, or organic reach, or it's content marketing, whatever the case might be. And then I would practice, which in the case of advertising, you're split testing, or you're running a whole
Mhm.
bunch of different ads. You're not just having just one thing and assuming that's going to work. In the same way that if you were to be a basketball player, and you take one free throw and it goes in magically, and that's it, you never have to practice again. I mean, that isn't the way the world works. So I have to
Mhm.
practice. In this case, if I'm using Facebook ads, then it has to be something like a number of different Facebook ads that you might be split testing. If I'm doing content marketing, then I need to make sure that I'm getting the right engagement numbers from Google, and all those other things. And then I have to, once I find something that works, I persist. So that means I'm not abandoning ad campaigns that work. I'm abandoning ad campaigns that don't work. And then
Mhm.
so that brings me back to, plan, prepare, practice, persist. And if I'm persisting in the right way, I can revisit my plan. And if the business is headed in the right direction, i.e., that I'm still on track and my plan is still intact, then I can continue. Then the plan might need to be tweaked but not abandoned. Then I can
Mhm.
prepare that plan. I can practice and persist. And I keep doing that. It's a positive feedback loop. You keep going up and up and up and up. And if indeed I get to the planning stage and I'm no longer aligned with either the goals, or I'm no longer aligned in the process, or I'm no longer aligned with what I was thinking I would achieve, then I have to stop and think, am I on the wrong track? What have I got to do? Do I have to stop? Do I have to revisit everything? And if you do that very simple thing, and I've used that sailing around the world, I've used that in the Army, I've used that in science, I've used that thing in business, obviously, and I've used that in just your own personal life. I mean, think if you had to, if you were faced with firing someone, that's, you're unhappy.
Not fun.
Not fun.
Mhm.
And you want to make sure that you're actually doing the right thing, and not just reacting, that you're, that you want to be proactive, and you want to make sure that you're doing everything humanly possible to allow that person to succeed in some other place, because they may not be right for you. That doesn't mean that they're bad. And I think that your responsibility as an entrepreneur is to help them land somewhere where they can be truly successful. And that plan, prepare, practice, persist is, you can use that very effectively when it comes to hiring, or potentially helping people move on to be more successful elsewhere. And as an entrepreneur, you have lots of contacts, right?
Mhm.
That's the world. So you just don't, you can, if you're doing this properly, what that person, what their strengths and weaknesses might be. And you just go to your network and say, I've got this guy, Bert. He's, he's a real tech nerd. That's how he sees the world. He's really good at that, but he doesn't have people skills. I mean, it's
Mhm.
pulling stuff out of the air. So you can say, if you need a tech guy, he's your guy. And you say, okay, I know it's not working out with us, but I have a contact I want you to go see, and I think that your skill set is well matched. So that makes firing someone, it's not firing anymore.
Right.
And it makes the most distasteful task that you have to do as an entrepreneur tasteful, like you're actually helping
Mhm.
someone. I mean, you're in the marketplace to help. You're in the
Right.
marketplace to, I mean, you have to build a culture. So the culture is designed in your small business, is there to ensure that the people that you're working for you are successful. You're successful in terms of your audience, and you're successful in terms of your web footprint. But the point is you're there to help people to succeed internally and externally. So why not
Mhm.
use that same paradigm when it comes to helping people land softly somewhere else when they're not actually working out for you. So
Mhm.
that's an example, a very, very specific example when it comes to advertising, and when it comes to helping two fun things, one fun thing, one thing that's not so fun. And
Mhm.
that's what I mean by you can use that very simple paradigm to plug into any context, and it succeeds. And I defy anyone to use that and then have it blow up in their face.
Mhm. Well, and I know sometimes when, negative things are happening to people, some will kind of take on like that victim mentality, like, oh, these things are all happening to me. And then there's others who will just say, this is a tough situation. I'm going to, take control as much as possible and take what I have and do what I can to change the position that I'm in. So, what
Mhm.
advice would you give maybe to entrepreneurs then who are feeling stuck? They're overwhelmed by this adversity, so that they don't end up in that victim mentality, but really can just move forward and overcome the adversity.
Well, I think the first thing to do is to step back, and because you're embroiled in it, and which
Mhm.
means that your perspective is might be, oh, I won't say limited, but might be biased based on the last 10 things that didn't work, because that's how it goes. The last 10 things aren't going to work, and then the next 10 things aren't going to work, and then maybe the next 5 won't work, and then suddenly the 27th one just blows the roof off everything. You need to take a step back and take a deep breath and have a look at the landscape that you're in. And the way that I get around things like that are causing me all kinds of grief, I take a step back and I think of, okay, I got this big problem. So big problems abound. So it might be that, okay, geez, I've got to, I might have to, let's say I guess for the sake of argument, I have a commitment to payroll that's $25,000. Okay, and I think, well, I don't have $25,000 in the bank. And if you've been an entrepreneur long enough, you'll know what it feels like to pay, your employees out of your own pocket.
Mhm.
That just happens. So you would think that can go, okay, I don't have $25,000. You go, throw your hands up. Where am I going to get $25,000? Because that seems like an impossible task. You need to chunk that up into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller bits until you end up at some place where you end up with, well, I can make $5. Literally, it's as simple as that. And it sounds crazy, but let me give you another example that might be a little more concrete as opposed to esoteric. So um, I paddled. this is from sort of in an adventure context. I paddled across the country, across all of Canada from one ocean to the other. And it's 7,800 kilometers. I did it solo without any electronic navigation at all. And it's completely in the wilderness. And it's really hard. So to give you some example, I had to walk over the Rocky Mountains in winter, pulling the canoe behind me to get over from one river system to the next. So I actually walked 1,100 kilometers, pulling the canoe to go from one, and most of it in winter. So if you sit down and go, okay, Bert, you're gonna paddle 7,800 kilometers across a continent. You go, well, that's impossible. I'm staying home and watching Netflix. There's just no way that anyone can do that. That's just ridiculous. Why would you want to do that? Well, how about you paddle 5? Well, that's 5,000. That's still stupid. How about 3,000? No, that's halfway across. It's not going to work. But then I could literally chunk it down to, can I get in the canoe and make one stroke? And the answer to that question is of course, yes. But it turns out every day is between 25 and 35,000 canoe strokes. So I'm never actually thinking of getting across the country. That's impossible. I'm not actually even thinking about doing the 60 kilometers, whatever it is I have to do today. I'm thinking, can I make one simple stroke? And this is all a canoe stroke. That's it. It's brain dead simple. Anyone can do it. But if you persist at it, plan, prepare, practice, persist, like I'm actually paddling in the right direction. As a good example of it, is my plan working? Because it's easy to get lost. You just boil that giant problem down into one canoe stroke. And if you can do that, anyone can do it. Like I did it when I was 62. I wasn't, I'm not a young man. The last time I was in a canoe was 40 years before that. So I just decided I was going to do this after I sailed around the world. But the point is, I decided, can I do one canoe stroke? And the answer is yes. And I can do another one. The answer is yes. And then keep doing it. And pretty soon, there you are. So take these giant problems you have and turn them into the smallest piece that you can think of. And you'll get to a piece where your mind can't tell the difference between whether this is easy or hard. And that's what you do. And you do that. Of the two things that you need to do, one is going to be easy, one is going to be slightly harder. I can sit in the canoe and float, or I can have one stroke. Well, one stroke is just a little bit harder. So that's what you do. And it turns out there's all kinds of reasons why doing the hard thing is the morally correct thing. I know that sounds a little bit esoteric and maybe a little bit trite, but that's the way it is. And I don't care in what context you look at that problem, but that's the way it is. If you just boil that problem down into the smallest piece and then choose the harder of the two directions. And the harder of the two directions is going to be as simple as either, sitting down on the couch or standing up. I mean, think of it without belaboring the point. Think, okay, Bert, I've got to get fit, but I'd rather sit on the couch and watch hockey games because that's really easy. But to get fit, I got to go to the gym, or I got to do this, or it all sounds so hard. Because this is, it's the middle of winter, it's raining, whatever the case, but I can go, well, I can sit up on the couch and watch TV. And your mind doesn't know the difference between lying down and sitting up. So you sit up. Like that's the harder of the two things. And that's how big the step has to be. And the next thing, well, I can stand up. No, the next thing I can walk to the door. The next thing I can actually open the door. And then I can stand outside with the door closed. Then that process moves you in the right direction. And it sounds simple because it is, and because it's so simple, it's incredibly powerful.
So it's taking those very small steps, not looking at the big challenge, but taking that first small step and then the next small step, and then you're going to make it through that challenge. So
yeah, it's the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I didn't invent this, but it's been around for a very long time. And for entrepreneurs, and we talked about this at the very beginning, the first thing that goes by the wayside is the plan. So you have to be completely divorced from the outcome and 100% embedded in the process, because you cannot see the forest for the trees when you're taking these little small steps. And because the future is above my pay grade, I don't know what the future looks like for my business. You might want to start out as a pastry chef, and then next thing you know, because there's a bigger market for pastry like things like, say, pizza dough or artisan bread. Because if you can make pastry, which is incredibly difficult, you might find that you're selling $10 worth of pastries and $150 worth of artisan bread. But you don't know that until you start, and you don't know that until you start taking these iterative steps forward. So when you start out, and if I told you as a marketing guy, I would say, well, you might be selling literally 150, literally 15 or 20 times more artisan bread than pastry. You go, no, I'm a pastry chef. I'm not interested in that. So how do you know? You don't know what the future is going to hold. I mean, you are not your market. You don't actually know how the market is actually going to accept you. And if you're not
Mhm.
open to those possibilities, then it's going to be a very difficult road to hoe. So
Right.
so I think that that sort of methodology or paradigm will stand you in good stead, especially again if you're divorced from the outcome.
Mhm. Well, and at the beginning, you were talking about when you're facing these challenges, you have to have this bucket of whys, or you're not
hmm
going to make it through. Would you maybe just explain to the person who's listening, how, if they're not sure how to actually find the purpose, and find all of those whys, how can they discover what those whys really are? And then how do they stay connected to those during those times that are so challenging when they really think maybe I should just give up?
Well, I think you have to make it. You have to cast these problems or these whys in very personal ways. So you look at the things that you care about the most, which is
Mhm.
typically your family. So start with your family. What would it look like if my business were successful? I could spend more time with my wife. I could spend more time with my kids. I'd be able to take them on the vacations I really would like to take them on. I wouldn't have to work as much. We'd have more, we'd have more money to do the things that we would like to do. So start with the things that are very, very close to you, that are close, near and dear to your heart. And those things are important. So when I say, well, I need to make $25,000 on, monthly recurring revenues, that doesn't resonate with anybody.
Mhm.
It sounds like an interesting number, but you can't tie it to anything meaningful because it's almost irrelevant, because $25,000 per month might literally be something like bus change 2 years from now. But
Mhm.
taking care of your family, that's never bus change, right? So that's
Mhm.
that's a driver that will animate just about everything that you might move forward doing. Where a dollar value is a dollar value, and it's deflating. So like
Right.
think of your whys that aren't connected to things that really mean something to you, like family, like friends, like lifestyle choices, things that add value to your life in ways that freedom, like financial freedom, and freedom from the drudgery of everyday work. Think of how those can drive you, as opposed to you come up to I come up to you and I say, oh, Candy, I just hit 25 grand per month. And you go, well, I did that like 7 years ago. We're at 250. So suddenly my 25 seems like, I don't know. But if I came to you and I said, hey, I just took my family to, we went on this great vacation to Aruba. And
Mm.
you said, yeah, we just got back from the Turks and Caicos. Okay,
Mhm.
that's a different thing. It's a completely different dynamic. Like we can relate on a level that's the same. So I would start with things like family, things that are really important, and then look at lifestyle. Like how actually, what would I want my life to look like in 3 or 5 years? So it might be that I have more time. I can do the things that I'm passionate about. Maybe the business is successful enough that I can give back to the community as in terms of um, philanthropy, or maybe I can give to a cause that I'm really, really passionate about. So I have some of my friends who don't necessarily make a ton of money, but they take the money that they have as part of their lifestyle, and they go to places and buy hospital beds in
Mm.
in Africa, or they go to South America, and they're investing in schools. So that's a huge give back. It's phenomenal what you can do with a little bit of money, when it comes to philanthropy, if you're actually going right to the source, right on the ground. So that's very attractive to me. Again, I like to do citizen
Mhm.
science because I'm a scientist. So I'm always gearing what I'm doing around those particular passions, and those are powerful whys, and none of them have anything to do with a set dollar value. And the other thing you can do, for example, is my father was a small businessman, and he employed. I grew up in a very small town, and my dad employed, anywhere, depending on what was going on, between 5 and 10 people. Well, that's not a big business, but it was a very, very important part of that community. And
Mhm.
those people worked with him for 35 years. So think of that. Think of that. Think of that. Think of the. I can imagine. I know how my father felt about providing for not clearly not just his employees, but the impact that had on the community at large. So those are powerful whys, and those
Hmm.
should be in everybody's bucket.
Hmm.
And if you start in that place, then I think you're going to be you'll have no end to them, like no end to them. You could I want to provide for my kids' education. I want to put some money away for a grandchild. I want to make sure that that my parents can come visit, or I want to go see, like, it could be just I want to go see my best friends. I want to be able to travel, and I want to be able to go to them because you have the ability to do that. I want to go there and just say connected with my friends. I mean, those are drivers. Those are
Hmm.
things that can those are deep seated whys that will that are very powerful when it comes to bolstering or acting as a foundation for those things that are really hard.
Hmm. Well, this has been a fabulous discussion. I've really enjoyed it, but I know we're getting to the end of the time we
Yeah.
have together. So I wanted to ask, do you have an offer that you would like to extend to our listeners? And if they want to connect with you, how can they find you?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find. If you go online and Google my name, there's all kinds of things there. But I think the best way for business people, you can find me on LinkedIn as just Bert terHart. You can go to my a website, bertterhart.com, and that will help you decide what rabbit hole you want to bounce down. But so I'm easy to find. And my rule is, if you email me, I will email you back. So if you have the courage, and it takes courage to reach out. I don't care in what context, but if you have the courage to email me, then I'll email you back. And I relish those conversations because it gives me a much deeper insight into the people that I'm resonating with in my own audience. So, but for small business people, if they reach out to me, then we'll do the audit that we do whenever we're onboarding new clients. So we have the entire gamut of tools, I suppose, that we use to gather some insight into what your presence is actually on the web. So in essence, it's how you're telling your story online, and if you can do that effectively, then you will find that your ability to attract and engage and keep customers is going to go through the roof. So we typically look at about 1,000 different things that
Mm.
pertain to that pertain to your business across a number of different contexts. So simplistically, it's what does your website look like on a mobile device? How quickly does it load? What are you doing? What can we do to ensure that you're meeting all the things that Google wants you to meet, and you're doing all the things that every other search platform wants you to do? So we'll do that in a desktop platform, a tablet platform, and a mobile platform. But that's one of 7 different audits that we do. So if there's any small business people out there that want to have a deeper insight into what their business actually looks like from the outside and from a digital perspective, because when people ask the question, who do I buy from, they ask that question online. And
Hmm.
if you're not in that conversation when they ask the question, then kind of good luck to you. I'm sorry to say, it's not a level playing field. Doesn't matter how good you are at what you do. um, there's not a search algorithm in the world that really cares about that, despite what you might
Hmm.
think about, even though
Right.
reviews are important. But so
Hmm.
that's the offer. Contact me, reach out to me, and then we'll happily do that for you. And I know that's going to be. I know that you can use that information to great advantage. So it's well worth doing.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Bert, for being a guest on my show and sharing your wisdom on this topic. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I knew this is always great. It's always great for these things. And whenever we can choose, like I said, what rabbit hole to dive down, it's always a wonderful conversation. So thank you for having me on.
Sure. And I will also want to thank you, the listener, for tuning in. And if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.